is live on Q95 FM's Facebook page and YouTube channel. So, of course, we await you on the social media platforms. I know some of our regular listeners like to shout us out there on the live feed. But there is so much going on at Jolly's Pharmacy. Lots to talk about, lots of new developments, and everything, of course, positive. And I feel like just so well done the changes to cater to the customers. Jacinta, I have visited the what we're calling the new old Jollies on King George V Street, the wholesale branch of Jolly's Pharmacy, now catering to your pharmacy and retail needs. Yes.
So, for those who are still asking, yes, we do have the other branch open, like Julie said, and it's neatly set up. We saw videos of it very early, and we were very much impressed. So I'm hoping that our loyal customers will also be impressed. So yes, so it's not just in the pharmacy area, retail. So your products, as you had it in the other branch, we also have it, in our wholesale department. So the time remains the same from 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. from Mondays to Fridays, and on Saturdays from 8 to 3 p.m.
And I must say the setup looks very nice, and kudos to the staff who made this setup possible. I see, of course, our King George V Street branch pharmacists and so on shining. Good morning to Rick. I saw you in that promotional video. Very well done. But I see the staff from King George V Street now in the new old Jollies on King George V Street and catering to the needs of customers, both, of course, as we said, retail, pharmacy, and the wholesale operations continue. So, yes.
It's a 3-in-1.
3-in-1, yes, 3-in-1, and good stuff, and it looks good, and I'm sure customers are satisfied, because that was the favorite branch of a lot of customers.
Definitely.
Yes, not to say anything about the Great George Street, Jacinta. Okay.
We do have our loyal customers in the Great George as well, but I really must point out that in setting up the dispensary section and the retail areas, that the staff really worked around the clock. And big up to the staff members, especially, as you mentioned, Rick, and the other pharmacy technicians as well, and those who crafted the entire section. Well done, kudos to you and to us.
And then there is more big news. Jollies.dm officially back online. So if you are used to checking out Jollies.dm for your online purchases, we are very pleased to announce that Jollies.dm is back online, and we're ready, of course, to serve international customers. So if you're overseas and you were used to going on Jollies.dm and looking for your favorite products, you can do so once again. Delivery service available. DHL is the provider. The orders, I am told, arrive very quickly in just 3 to 5 days. So all those products that you want from Dominica, in terms of you're used to certain products, and you can get them on Jollies.dm. Overseas delivery, very quick, and there's also a free shipping order currently if you purchase $50 or more on Jollies.dm. For the locals who are saying, but what about us? So you can shop on Jollies.dm from Dominica, but you have to pick up your orders at a Jollies location. And of course, we advise you to call before to determine which location you should pick up at. So that is good news for those of us online shoppers. And you can do shopping once again on Jollies.dm.
In addition, we also have our pharmacy at jollysonline.com up and running. So after the fire for a few days, and I think a week or so, it was down. So right now you can send your prescriptions via email or any other questions or queries via this means. Also, those who had special orders before the fire, please feel free to come in to reorder or to place the order again so that we can order them for you.
Okay, so things are definitely looking up, and we've been telling you. There's one other thing we've been telling you. I've told you, I think, for the past 2 weeks about the upcoming 5K run. Jolly's annually does this wellness run, of course, always in support of a very worthwhile health cause, health and wellness cause. And this year, April 25th is the date, Saturday, April 25th. I've been telling you, mark your calendars. Now is the time to start to register. So if you haven't done so, you can register. The contribution to take part in the run is $25 EC dollars. Of course, you can do more than that because, as I said, the run is for a good cause. This year, we are running or walking, as I keep saying too. If you cannot run, don't be discouraged. You can do it by walking. We are running or walking for persons with disabilities. So that is the cause this year. And of course, the beneficiaries of this event will be the Dominica Association of Persons with Disabilities and Circle of Friends. So we gearing up for the 5K run, April 25th. Registration minimum contribution of $25. You can register at any Jolly's branch. So we have Jolly's on King George V Street, right? We have Great George Street, JP Mega, and of course Portsmouth as well. And the main office now that you can register at, and the main office in terms of administrative work, is at Bon Santé, which is on Hillsborough Street. That's right across from the Wesley High School, upstairs Jolly's Manufacturing. If you don't know Roseau, you don't know the names of streets, I'm trying to give you some. Yes, I'm trying to give you some landmarks. So Hillsborough Street across from Wesley High School, not Wesley High School close to La Falaise, the other one. Yes. Next to Big Edge. Right. And upstairs Jolly's Manufacturing. That's Bon Santé Medical Center. Of course, Dr. Lisa Jolly's place there. So you can register at the main office for the walk, for the run, 5K run as well. But you can do so at the other Jolly's branches too.
Yes, there is a slight change in the starting point.
Yes, different routes.
So before we had it at from the Massac primary school, but this year we'll be having it at from Newtown.
Yes.
To Goodwill. So the ending point remains the same. So right now, we have to get up.
Not to Goodwill, to River State in Canefield. Canefield. So Newtown to Canefield.
Yes, that's correct. So get your heart rate pumping, get yourself in gear. Just get physically fit because it is a 5K run, so those of us who are not used to such long
walk. Yes.
Just do a little exercising.
Right, and you have 1 month here. It's March 25th. Today we've given you advance notice. You have 1 month to get yourself prepped. April 25th, we're running or walking from Newtown Savannah all the way to Canefield River Estate. We're starting at 3 p.m. and of course, once again, for a very, very good cause, persons with disabilities. The colors we're wearing, blue or yellow. So register. So these are the let me give you let me put it in sequence. First, you register at any Jolly's branch or at the main office at Bon Santé Medical Center on Hillsborough Street, upstairs Jolly's Manufacturing. You register first. Make sure your $25 is locked in, $25 or more. Then you secure your blue or yellow shirts, right? Then you start getting fit if you're not fit already. So you exercise for the month to make sure you can participate, and then you show up on April 25th, Saturday, 3 p.m. Newtown Savannah, and you take part in this great, great cause, Jolly's National Wellness 5K run, coming up very, very soon. All right. So we'll talk more about that at a later date, but we're giving you advance notice so you can prep. What we're going to do right now, we're going to take a quick break. We have guests in studio. I see the online people are popping up, so they're seeing our guests. If you are on social media, you maybe would have seen the flyer for the show, so you have an idea of what's going on this morning. But I advise you to stay tuned. When we come back, we'll be introducing our guest and our topic for today. It's a very new topic for us on Health Vibes. Never done this before. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Right.
Oh, and if they play convenience, make a big difference, then you can trust me and know just where you should be. That is JP Mega, 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 Mega. The one-stop shopping, no me, nigga. You could be shopping and having fun. If you're not a happy social, it's to everyone. What a happy place, happy place. Oh, JP Mega, 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 Mega. The one-stop shopping, no me, nigga. You could be shopping and having fun. It's to everyone. What a happy place, happy place. Oh, what a happy place. But just fix some more any item and you automatically qualify for discounts. Check us out at the Mega Store in Fongole, where there's lots of parking on Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. JP Mega, the best family shopping experience.
We got this morning feeling mystic. I had the dishes and calling sick, but I end up in Jolly's pharmacy. And down in the street, Jolly's fix up my immune system. Me feeling fit and strong now. I'm ready to work like it on any mission. If you see me again, Jolly's pharmacy is number one. Jolly's forget. We cater for everyone. Jolly's forget. The immune system, Jolly's forget. Yo, Dominic, it's about part of box. Whenever I'm in town and I'm feeling down, I head to Jolly's Pharmacy, then boost me up real quick. Jolly's Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare.
Would you be missing the party this weekend because of that nagging cold and cough? Boost your body's immunity now by taking Feral Compound, a combination of vitamins and minerals to fight off coughs and cold, so you can be the life of the party again. Don't be restricted by those nagging coughs and cold. Take Feral today and enjoy the little joys of life. Feral Compound is for adults and children 14 years and older. Available at Jolly's Pharmacy and all our locations island-wide.
Jolly's Pharmacy is bringing vibes to health with Health Vibes. Health Vibes each and every Wednesday from 10 to 11:30 a.m. with your hosts Trudy Kristen and co-hosts pharmacists Jacinta Fagan and Leona Jeremiah. Education, information, and a bit of humor, and not forgetting lots of vibes. Jolly's Pharmacy is bringing health and vibes together with Health Vibes. So be sure to tune in each and every Wednesday on Q95 from 10 to 11:30 a.m. Jolly's Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare.
Cough, cold, sore throat, getting you down? Get Fitzroy mentholated cough and cold syrup for the symptomatic relief of cough, colds, catarrh, and sore throats. Fitzroy Cough and Cold instantly release and can be taken every 2 hours. It is pleasant tasting and competitively priced. Fitzroy Cough and Cold is manufactured in England. Fitzroy Cough and Cold, the relief you're looking for.
Distributed by Jolly's Pharmacy Limited.
And we are back with you. As I promised, we have a very interesting show geared up for you this morning. We have guests in studio too, and that's always a delight. So we have, at the start of the year, when we asked, for some topic ideas, what people want to hear about, there was a conversation that popped up about the prevalence of bullying.
Yes.
And of course, as a health talk show, we decided that it was important to take this issue because of its impact on health, and that's mental health.
Right.
So this morning, our focus is on bullying and its impact on mental health, particularly of adolescents, but we will talk a bit broader as well. And we do have very well equipped guests in studio, equipped to deal with the topic. And so without further ado, let me introduce our guests in studio. This morning, we have Mudoni McIntyre in studio with us, and she is the deputy manager at Chances. And of course, she's also a youth advocate. I know background in psychology. I will allow her to introduce. And we also have Giselle Mondesi Charles, who actually, through her work, she's the project coordinator of GPE Kicks Dominica. She'll tell us what that is. But through her work, there was a big anti-bullying forum, and I saw the outcome of that, and I was so intrigued. So we've invited Giselle here and Mudoni here to really get into this topic with us this morning. Ladies, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning to our listeners of Q95. My name is Modoni, and like Trudy said, I am the deputy manager at Chances. I've been there for the past 11 years. This April will be 11 years since I've been there. So I have been working with children and adolescents for the past 11 years. It's something that I'm passionate about. I love the youth. I love to mentor them, advocate for them, and just help them out, I have a background in psychology, and I am also pursuing counseling as a second degree.
Okay,
nice.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Giselle Mondesi Charles. I am the project coordinator for the Gender Equity, Inclusion and Innovation Project. It is funded by GPE Kicks, which is the Global Partnership for Education, Knowledge, Innovation, Exchange. Whew, such a mouthful.
Yes.
Yeah. So the focus of the project has been to look at gender equity and inclusion in schools. Previously, my previous role, I worked with UNICEF ECA office as the country program coordinator. And most people in Dominica know me as an educator for 23 years. I worked in education at the Dominica Grammar School. So my background is very heavily in education.
Nice. Welcome both.
Thank you.
So let's get the ball rolling on our discussion. I think I want us to start off with defining this bullying term. It's something that I think a term that many people use. Don't bully me, you're a big bully. We use it a lot, but what does it really mean? What does it signify when we're talking about bullying? So, ladies, I'm throwing that first question out to you all.
Okay, so bullying is intentional and repeated behavior by someone who seeks to harm, intimidate, or to exclude another person.
Okay.
So that can take the form of physical bullying, verbal, social, or online. So it can take many different types of forms. Yes.
And I am very, very happy that we are leading with this question. Very happy because, like you said, some may say, "Oh, you're bullying me," and so on. And parents may say, "If anybody bully you," and then there's a confusion as to what bullying is when it's really a conflict. So we have to distinguish between bullying and when there is a conflict, and then now you can bring in those skills like conflict resolution. Everyone has conflict. Conflict is okay. It's how we resolve it.
Right.
And then when we distinguish the two, then we can better deal with the behaviors or issues of bullying for those who are perpetrators as well as those who experience it. So it is very important to differentiate the two.
So you would say that bullying is an ongoing process where because we want to make sure that our listeners are they understand the difference clearly. So as you were saying, you don't want to.
It is repeated.
Right.
It is repeated. It is consistent, and the intent is to harm.
Okay.
It may be physical, emotional, psychological, exclusion, but the intent is to harm in one way or another, and it has to be done consistently. Not just when we say, "You're not playing with me today."
No.
That's not bullying. That's
No.
just today we're not friends.
Right.
It's just a conflict.
It's just a
Yes.
conflict.
Yes.
But if consistently you see one child is being left out consistently, then something is going on. It doesn't necessarily mean still it's bullying, You investigate the matter, see what's going on, and then you go from there.
Interesting. So the aspect of consistency has to be in there, and the intent as well has to be in there. So in with the intent to harm. Yes. And I guess that is different, and you've mentioned different from conflict, yes, but is that different from maybe what somebody would just call unkind behavior? Let's say there's someone who's just unpleasant, so they're not essentially friendly, or so they might be unpleasant to others, or a child who may be unpleasant to other children, doesn't want, is that, would that in any way fall under the definition?
That's an interesting question.
Uh,
I think it takes us back to the definition itself
okay.
of intent
Mhm.
and repeated. Is
Okay.
the intention, because sometimes people do things and they're not aware
Mhm.
of certain
Okay.
things. So they're not aware that they're harming somebody. But if the person is intentional, like I want to harm this person, so I'm doing
Right.
this, and it's consistent and persistent, then yes, that is bullying.
Okay.
So we have to differentiate between the two and try to understand if the person is aware or not.
Okay, thanks for that clarification because, like you rightfully said, sometimes, and even not just children, even adults as
Correct.
well, to your peers, to your family members, to children, as we'll discuss later on, probably is the person's personality, and they are not aware that they are harming that person mentally, well, especially mentally, in various ways. So that can really cause confusion sometimes. And I feel many of the cases that I have heard of, they would really let us know that it's more verbal, and then it may escalate to physical. And depending on the nature of the bullying, they may have the incorporation of both. And then it may extend, like you said, to social media, either Facebook, Instagram, any other platform which is available to harm that person. Yeah.
No, I have a question. I want to go into the mental health aspects of the topic. Now we know what bullying is, what it isn't. What, therefore, can we ascribe, or what can we say that bullying causes um, to the mental health of the victim, or what is the outcome typically to mental health of someone who is being bullied, so the victim? And I guess too, I can ask about the mental health status of the perpetrator, yes, as well.
Yes.
So I guess on both fronts, the victim and the perpetrator, what does it say about mental health, or what does it indicate?
Well, okay. Well, the project, like I said, we looked at gender equity, inclusion, and innovation. And we conducted a survey among secondary school students, fourth and fifth form, as well as college students. And there were questions on bullying. And when we saw the data, that was what led to the forum being organized and and we rolled it out in Dominica, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent. So all three countries had an anti-bullying forum, because what we did find, bullying is an issue. It is an issue in all three of the countries. For Dominica, 45.7% of respondents reported being bullied, teased, or harassed. In St. Vincent, 44.4%, and in St. Lucia, 48.4%. Now, just allow that to sink in for a moment. These are secondary school students.
Right.
So now you're wondering what happens as a result. And as Trudy, you rightfully ask, how does that affect their mental health? It does. Again, we did ask a question on the mental health, and we saw that the bullying manifested itself physically as well as in their mental health. So physically, stomach cramps. They cannot physically do anything. The headaches, it manifested itself that way. And then when we look at mental health, that was a major issue as well. Depression. So the respondents who were bullied very often or often had higher prevalence of depression. And we actually have in Dominica more than 30% of the students who were bullied often with suicidal thoughts. So allow that they not have acted on it, but the thought was there. And that are those who were bullied very often. So that is very, very important and alarming also. Because let us ask yourself this question. Have they spoken to anyone about it? You have children suffering in silence, trying to figure out how to deal with it. What should I do? What did I do to cause that? Is something wrong with me? And then you couple that with, let us say you have a parent who themselves were bullied and were never able to deal with that bullying. Then that parent is not equipped to help their child who are being bullied as well. So the cycle may continue. So it can really entrench itself in the system and can perpetuate itself in society outside of education, outside of the classroom, in groups. Then they become teenagers, they become young people. They're now adults in the workplace. Do they themselves remain bullies, or they become a bully because now they can exert some power over someone else? So the cycle can just continue, and it is something that is systemic. If we have to deal with it as a whole, as a society, in the education system, and create safe environments for students to be able to report, as well as for those who are the bullies to get the support and help they need, because it's not just who have been bullied. Find out what is the cause of the person bullying. There's a situation, I did a session with a secondary school in September. And then talking to another teacher from another school, we found out that there was a case of bullying at another school. I said, really? She said, yes, it was terrible. I said, what happened? There was one young man whose grandparents came in saying, child was stealing all of a sudden. This was not normal. Investigating, he was being bullied by another student. The other student would take his monies and his food. So then when he didn't have now, he would go home and steal from the grandparents to bring to school to give to the bully. Upon further investigation, you're finding out the bully himself now, the family is going through some economic difficulties. So he himself, the bully, is coming hungry. So then looking for someone to prey on. So it is a cycle. It is a cycle. So you have to look at the victims as well as the perpetrators to help both to see how you can really eradicate the issue.
But do you know that sometimes the one who is being bullied, they are threatened? And that may be the reason why they do not feel safe enough to report. So can you imagine someone saying, if you tell your mother, if you tell the teacher, if you tell your big brother or sister, I will do this to you, right? So obviously you do not want increased harm, so you keep it to yourself and try to deal with it on your own. So that's many times why, they suffer in silence. But other than, the physical harm, it may also affect their grades because they are not able to be focused. They are not able to study.
Or they don't want to be there at all. So excuse after excuse, I'm not feeling well today. And then you're like, there's a pattern occurring. But something that you brought up, the reporting, the forum we had, it was focused on the students, and that was what was important. We wanted to hear student voices from their perspective, what would work. Sometimes as adults, we say, oh, this is going to work. Hello, we went to school how many years ago? We don't know what they did it with. We don't know. That is the reality. So getting from their perspective what the issues are and how to solve it, that is when we look at some innovation projects. And one of the things I came up with from the state college students, which was really awesome, to anonymous reporting. So they would place boxes at strategic places on campus, and you can just drop a note saying so on and so forth, and you can drop it in there, and then they can deal with it without you feeling that someone is going to see me and so on and so forth. Another group of students came up with what they call the bully stoppers system. And the bully stoppers are supposed to be champions. They are champions trying to be empathetic, and if they see anyone bullying, they try to intervene or they report it and so on. And these are ideas from students
students.
for students. And that is what I think it's
I
important.
love that.
When we hear their voices
Mhm.
and they come up with things that are possible, it's not expensive, but it is worth the try to
Right.
see if it works.
Mhm.
And if it does work, I think can be very, very helpful.
I definitely like that, kind of student-centric approach, because if it's a
course.
problem affecting them, getting their feedback on
Mhm.
solutions is definitely a good approach. And then us as adults actually following through with the suggestions and trying to implement,
Right.
So I think that's critical. But Giselle, earlier on, you mentioned one of the outcomes, I would call it, of bullying on the victim. You mentioned suicidal ideation and how prevalent that is amongst those who have reported being bullied. So I want to switch over to Mudoni for a bit and ask about the whole way to deal now with these psychological outcomes that we are witnessing happening because of bullying. So you have young people reporting and high numbers, 40 something percent in Dominica, right? 45?
In each of the countries,
In-
Dominica was 45, St.
Okay.
Vincent was 44, St. Lucia was 48. We're all in the 40s.
40s,
Right.
yes. So that is,
It's
that's high.
That's alarming.
And so you have these high numbers of young people reporting being bullied, and then you have some of the outcomes, including something like thoughts of suicide. How do we address that? So let's go into some of the psychology behind fixing the problem or addressing the problem.
Okay, so first off, most times victims don't just commit suicide. It's something that happens or begins to take a hold of them from a very, well, not really small, but very insidious way. It's that small. So sometimes,
Right,
right? So
yes,
sometimes
yes.
you would find that they have low self-esteem. Something happens, it affects them, they get low self-esteem. Sometimes you see that they withdraw and they isolate from social activities, social clubs, spaces that they used to frequent often.
Right.
Sometimes the perpetrator may be in that environment and they're trying to avoid it. So that's why Giselle mentioned earlier about school,
Of course.
trying to
Make
basically dog school.
excuses,
I want to
yes.
dog school today, Or sometimes you would see, because of that, a decline in academic performance. So all of this is happening, and with the low self-esteem, they may have thoughts of I am not good enough, or I'm worthless. I don't have so many friends. They don't like me. They exclude me, and so on and so forth. These are a lot of feelings to deal with as a child. We have to remember that their brains are not fully developed and they don't have the coping skills to deal with this.
Right.
So imagine going through adolescence, high school, and this is a critical stage for them because they're also trying to form an identity and they're also trying to seek acceptance from their peers. So they have all of this on their plate. School, seeking acceptance, forming an identity outside of their family, outside of their friends, and so on. And then you incorporate low self-esteem into that, and you have no idea how to cope with it. Sometimes, as a result, you see adolescents starting to self-harm. So you will see, well, you have to observe because in doing so, they try to keep it private.
Yeah.
So they may stop wearing certain attire. So you will have a young girl or a young boy, and they have their shorts. It's hot weather, so you will have your shorts. You'll have a sleeveless, and all of a sudden that just changes. They'll have long sleeve, long pants, sweaters, turtlenecks. Or sometimes you would find that they don't want to be outside. They're always in their room. They don't want people to see them. These are signs that we have to look for and nip it in the bud very early because suicide doesn't just happen bam bam. Like she said, it's incremental, and sometimes they try and they don't succeed. They try, they don't succeed. So we have to be observant as parents, as teachers, as educators, as youth advocates. Everyone in society and the community has to be observant and observe these things. Now, when we observe it, we can speak to that child if we have that authority, or we report it to somebody who can speak to the child to investigate further. Now, you can do so through the schools. There are school counselors. The Department of Social Services has a counseling unit, and it's open to the public. It's free and it's open to the public. So if you need family counseling, or if an adolescent needs counseling, it can be referred. The first step is counseling and getting help and speaking to see how severe the situation is. And then depending on that, it will, it will be brought to other authorities, or, referred to other persons of professional interest in that area.
You just mentioned a resource I didn't know existed as it relates to the Department of Social Services
Yes.
and the counseling.
Yes,
So I think that's important information, because quite often people say, what is there in terms of counseling if someone needs to access, that service. So I think that's a very important tidbit that you shared here on the program, and so it's worthwhile to reinforce that somebody can go to the Department of
Yes,
Social
they can.
Services and request.
There are many departments on the Department of Social Services.
Okay,
So, for example, Chances is one department.
okay,
The counseling unit is another department. There is probation unit, there is general welfare, there is Bureau of Gender Affairs.
okay.
So there are different child abuse protection unit. That's
Okay.
another unit. So there are different units under the umbrella of social services.
Okay.
So counseling unit is one of that. Yes.
Okay.
And it's open to the public. It's free. There are competent counselors. We currently have a counselor at Chances from that unit who is stationed with us for our children as well.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, so at Chances,
Mhm.
have you had any experience with some of the children there, bullying another just because of their background,
All the
or
time.
because of jealousy, or just because?
All the time. All the time. This week I had to speak with some of our residents because one reported it to me. Miss, I'm being bullied by so and so. And I'm like, really? Talk to me. What is happening? And getting to know and find out and so on. It's really trying to exercise power over someone else. Sometimes they feel like they don't have enough. Sometimes they are trying to get attention and love from everybody around. And currently we have 20 residents. So imagine 20 residents fighting for attention and love. Seeking approval, trying to get your attention. So because of that, you will see some of the children bully the others to try to eliminate that competition.
Yeah, okay. I understand.
More time with you.
Yes.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
It's not as severe, such as like a victim wanting to harm themselves. Thankfully, it's not as severe as that. But it's sometimes you would see it as rough play, but it's not really rough play. That's why you have to be observant. You have to observe the children, and it's not just at Chances, in the schools, in the homes, in youth groups.
Yeah.
You need to observe them. Just let them play, but observe.
How they play.
Right.
Right.
And then you will see who ends up on the sidelines, who takes dominance and control and want to control everything. And then some of them just get left on the side and they just realize, you know what? This isn't for me. This isn't working. I'm not
Accepted,
wanted there anymore.
yes.
I'm not accepted.
Mhm.
And they just end up on the sidelines. Sometimes you'd see them fight back, but because the other person may be more powerful than they are physically and influential too,
Yes.
sometimes they just, you know what, I give up, or I'll just do something else. So because of that, the child may be good at something, like let's say basketball, singing, dancing, painting, and whatnot, and they can't really explore that potential
Just
because they were bullied. They just give up like that. Yeah, but it's very common.
What I have experienced, I mean, I've never been bullied, thankfully, but I do know of an individual who was in high school. So she was in third form, and she expressed to me that she was being bullied, and she's a very quiet individual. She's not a troublemaker. And she told me that she had reported it, but it was not addressed properly. And so it continued. Eventually, her parents had to intervene and speak to the teachers, and the teachers, took some action. But it's very unfortunate to see that someone who is bullied reports it and they are either shunned or they might brush it off. So I think it is important that we, as you said, are very observant, and that if a child comes to us to express that they are being bullied, that they are taken seriously. Because what we may not see it as very serious, they are being affected, and that's why they reported it.
And that is something that came up at the forum. Quite a few of the students expressed that they would report it. They know people who have reported it, and it went nowhere.
No action.
No action. And it's not just they're saying they didn't see any action, but really no action. There was no consequence. There was no even any investigation. So we need to have those difficult conversations. We need to reflect on our actions or inactions in the classrooms and see what we can do to improve. And you should take every case seriously.
Right.
Put mechanisms in place where, okay, this is what happened. You take down your information, your notes, you record, and you investigate quietly, so then the person doesn't feel any more victimization may occur as a result. And it is also important, after the investigation, you go back to the person who reported it. If they reported it, they came to you, so they can feel seen and heard and feel that there's some sort of resolution. Or even if there isn't a resolution, but they still feel that they were heard.
Right.
And that's important for our little voices, our young voices. They want to be seen as well. They're human. So that is important, and then follow through. Like Mr. Rightly said, at the schools, there are counselors. Let's utilize the counselors, and they are well trained, well qualified. Once they are informed, they can keep the ball rolling.
And yes, that is definitely very important, the follow through, and very often we fail in that regard. But prioritizing it is I guess what is the way forward for that. As it relates to observing the children, like this is a point that we've been discussing, and we've brought up some things that you may see, some changes you may see in a child that's a victim, shielding themselves, not wanting to be out, not, wearing different things, acting differently. But then something came up about self-harm, and it being one of the, sort of things that happens when people maybe in that situation, they may resort to self-harm. I want to specifically ask about observing, or what are the cues for parents to be able to observe self-harm. And I'm asking because I have witnessed it when I was younger and I never knew what it was. Like I have witnessed a friend, and I never knew there was that's donkey years ago. I never, now we have a term self-harm. But I have witnessed a friend, and then I always used to wonder if her parents never witnessed it or saw it. So I just want some tips maybe for parents on observing what may be going on right under their roof. A child self-harming.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. This is a very interesting question, and it's very important because it's something that is very insidious a little bit, because you may think that your child is okay. You may think that, okay, they're just going through their normal adolescence era and then their mood. And, let them figure it out. But again, if it's persistent, if it's continuous, and you notice, each parent knows their child, right? And they might have some up and down days and so on and so forth. But if something is continuous, then you have to be observant. Now, what do we look for? Like I said earlier, you may notice a change in their clothing. Once the child is, let's say, a very active child, very social, they may withdraw, you know. And then because of the change of clothing, there may be marks on their skin,
Right.
on their hands.
That's what
No,
I had observed in
no.
that friend, is the marks.
Now, guess what? It's not just on the hands anymore.
The thighs.
The thighs.
Okay.
They look for
Easier
places
to
that
hide.
right. How can I hide the self-harm? Because you see, they can't help themselves. They feel whatever they feel, it's too much for them to cope with. So as a way to get it out, they cut or they harm themselves in other ways. So you will find the most common area is on the arm, forearm, right? You would find on the thighs. Okay, there are some instances where you would find on their abdomen area, because it must be covered, right? When you go to school, you're covered. Your abdomen is covered. You understand? When you're home, you're dressed appropriately. It's covered. One thing that could probably indicate is that, let's say you're going out as a family and you're going to the beach or the river, and the child loves to swim, the child loves outdoors, they're active, and all of a sudden they don't want to bathe. It's nothing medical, and they just don't want to bathe. They don't want their bodies to be seen. You know, you'd find loss of appetite or overeating. Okay, you would find sleep disturbances, their nightmares, or they can't sleep, or they sleep too much. Sleep too much in a way of escaping as well. Or can't sleep because, again, trying to cope with what is happening, and they cannot cope, and they may have nightmares because of that. What else can we think of? Again, the low self-esteem. Once there were like pleasurable activities, again, being more social, taking part in certain things, and they can no longer do that anymore, or they don't want to do that anymore. So there's a loss of interest. So these are some of the signs, or sometimes they're even bedwetting. It's possible.
At an older age.
Yes, it's possible at an older age. The child, let's say at a very young age, they stopped bedwetting, they grew out of it.
Right.
And then suddenly, all of a sudden, they started wetting themselves again in bed. That is also a very important sign that parents can look out for.
And one thing parents can also look out for on the other side of the spectrum, especially if they have younger siblings, they may become more aggressive with those at home.
Okay, so they're trying to forward the emotions up.
Right. So they cannot express that with the person or whoever is bullying them, but in the household, you're the parent, you just said, how was your day? And you get a very
aggressive reaction.
Very aggressive reaction.
And anger.
Or how they relate to their other siblings. So you can always pay attention to this as well, and then you just ask questions now and then, and be persistent in the asking the questions. And it's just as how it's important for the child to feel safe at school, safe at home, not just physically safe, but the emotional safe space to share. Sometimes parents think we ask and it doesn't matter who they no, we need that private time with you when no one is about, so we can share safely. So that's also important.
Yes.
So 2 points you mentioned dawned on me. So at the pharmacy, we've had parents come in to ask for appetizers for the children, or even to help them fall asleep. And it was so interesting as to why a parent of, let's say, a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, and the age would range, would want a medication to help the child fall asleep. And I do feel that further investigation is needed. And I mean, when they come in, we do advise them, if it is something ongoing, that they should seek medical assistance, because we wouldn't just give something over the counter and we would not know the reason why that child is having difficulty sleeping. There may be a wide range, it may not have anything to do with bullying, but you just never know if all of a sudden their sleeping pattern changes. And then in terms of appetite stimulants, like you said, the child was eating as regular, and then all of a sudden they have loss of appetite, they don't feel to eat again. So again, as you said, little changes can indicate that something is wrong. And this is where, parents talking with the children and being open about it, not making the children feel, afraid, to express as to why there is a change, is important.
Yes. And that's so interesting, Justin, for the things you would come across in pharmacy, and once again, we're talking about observing and observational skills. And you as a pharmacist can maybe see, some
Yeah.
indicators of something being wrong.
Of course.
And so I guess it's prudent to say all of us should keep our eyes open. We're having this discussion. People listening, might now be thinking, oh, so that's why,
Yes, of
and I
course.
specifically liked the scenario, Mudoni, as it relates to the going out to the beach or something, and then you
Yeah,
notice
the-
that change
Mhm.
in behavior. So these are definitely some good tips that have been shared, for people to start maybe paying a little more attention, and in so doing, helping eventually to get help, and to take some action on a situation that might be affecting a child. Giselle, I want to know, at that anti-bullying forum, whether or not the aspect of online bullying, what I've seen now referred to as digital violence, there are a multitude of different names. How significant is that for our young people, and did that come through at the forum?
It did come through at the forum. Not surprisingly, we live in a digital age, and when it was discussed, it was also brought forward that a lot of our young ladies, our young girls, may feel more comfortable being keyboard warriors, as you would call them, as opposed to our young men. Our young men may be more physically confrontational.
Right.
They may be doing it, in your face physically, sort. And then we sort. So that is a gender aspect to it, where a girl might feel more comfortable on her phone and so on. We saw that the ease of just a status post and what that can do to students when they come back to school, when they're at school.
Right.
So it was very, very prevalent. It was a concern. And it is something you have to ask yourself, can you really police that? All we can possibly do in that regard is to just sensitize, educate, and to help the young people develop a sense of empathy.
Right.
And I think that is what is
And
missing.
awareness.
Yes,
Yes.
empathy, to be empathetic, because we see in society things happen, and the first thing people do is pull out their phone to record,
And post.
as opposed to, oh my goodness, how can I help? How can I assist? So if we can get people to be more empathetic in certain situations, then perhaps they can say, you know what, me posting that one liner there for James, even though I didn't call James his name, but everyone in that class knows it's for James.
Yes.
Maybe it's not the best thing to do. So yes, the cyberbullying is an issue, but we can't really police it. Everyone has a phone now in their hands,
Which is what I'm thinking. It must be. It's so
Yes.
the problem would be huge, and you will be unable to pick it up because it's so easy to engage in cyberbullying or online bullying.
Of
As I said,
course.
digital violence, whatever people are called, whatever you want to call it. But like, how can we curtail something that's so widespread?
it's
Like-
just it's just a matter of sensitization, educating, and dare I say it, say a prayer up to God and hope they make the right decision. Because the reality is, at the end of the day, the parents can do their best to raise a child. Give them the best, and I'm supportive, I'm present, I'm helping you. And then they go out in the world and they do something like, but why? Because they are humans and they make the individual decisions. So we can just try to support them, educate them, sensitize them. Maybe if you do that, what if it was your sister this happened to you? Like, maybe if it was my sister, how I would feel.
Right.
So that, I think that's the best we can do with this cyberbullying and so on. Because can every teacher be on every child's social media? Like, really?
Right.
A parent is going to be able to go on, and they have Facebook. They're on YouTube too. They're on Instagram, TikTok. So you're trying to tell, I'm not saying parents cannot, but let us be realistic. A parent is going to go on every platform and say you cannot be on this platform and so on. It's difficult, a bit impossible to an extent, in terms of physically stopping it. But we can try to educate them about the consequences and their digital footprints. Many of our young people are forgetting there is a digital footprint. You put something out there, it's out there forever now. It's in the world now. understanding the consequences of doing these things is also important. How is that going to impact you 3 years down the line? Something you post on Facebook.
Right, right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so the sensitization, the awareness,
Of
you know,
course.
Empathy.
yes, that would go a long way. Okay, ladies, I want to open up the lines now. We've had some people trying to engage you first, but we're going to open up the lines now. We've been discussing bullying for a while and the impact it has on mental health. We've specifically been talking about young people, but we will go a little broader in just a minute. But for those who want to interact, the number is 449 3095, 449 3096, 449 3097, and 616 4257. If you're overseas and you want to reach out, the number 305 432 9624. So those are the numbers, and we already have a caller. Let's take this call. Caller, good morning.
Hey, good morning, morning, Judy.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Judy. Good morning, Justin. And good morning to, I think, what is she? Doctor in the house?
Jesse, no, we have Mudoni McIntyre in the house. She is psychology background.
Psychology
Yes.
background.
And then we have Giselle
Yeah.
Mondesi Charles in the house as well.
Okay, good. So let me say good morning to all. And I like what I'm hearing there. The conversation on bullying is something that has to be out there to give the awareness, because a lot of people don't know and understand what it looks like. And I just like all the aspects that the young lady was explaining. It is almost like a vicious cycle. And sometimes where it's coming from, one doesn't even really know. And most of the time, it can be from home, it can be from other areas, but a lot of times from home. I'm saying that because years ago, my daughter was maybe in primary school when a bullying issue came up, and she mentioned it to us, and then we brought it to the school board. They were not doing much about it, and the child who was the bully apparently wasn't only bullying my daughter; she was bullying other children also, and it was verbal, it wasn't physical, and it had that psychological part on, let us say, on my daughter in terms of when she was in the classroom. And we realized something was wrong when we spoke to teachers about it, until we ended up finding out who was the parent of the child and dealt with the parent also. By the time the parent heard the word bullying, she said, I don't like to hear that word, bullying. And then through investigation, what we understood, it was deep. The child got it actually from the mother, because the mother was bullying the father. And it was huge. And let me tell you something. This thing had so much implications, and the amount of children that was affected by it. And then when the school actually got involved now, something came over as a PTA. Certain things were done, but not enough, because I think that child needed help, and the parents was in denial. And then the father who was getting bullied at home was never part of the process, because it had to be all hands on deck. But then because the father was being bullied and the mother was the bully, then she was also manipulating the whole outcome of the bullying, because she said, I didn't like to hear that the bully, because she was the bully. She was kind of trying to safeguard herself. But I don't want to go into a long story. I want to ask a question to the professionals. Is a narcissistic person a bully? I don't have to stay on the line. You can just answer in your deliberation. Have a good day. Great program.
Thank you. Thank you. So, is a narcissist a bully? That is his question. Or can they be a bully?
It is a very interesting question, and it's an important question too. I think they may share tendencies and certain behaviors. I think they may be very common in their behavior, but bullying may start very young, and if it's not addressed early enough, And if the person does not seek counseling to address their behaviors, it can develop into narcissism.
So it can develop into
Right.
okay.
Yes.
I see we're getting another call. Let's pause and take this call. Caller, good morning.
Hello, morning, Trudy, Giselle, and whoever is there.
Good morning.
Nice,
We haven't
nice
heard you.
topic.
We haven't heard you in a long time, and I think
Sometimes
it's.
I choose to listen.
I swear it's you who suggested this topic. I might be wrong, but I have a feeling it
I
was
want to
you.
ask a question, but if I want to say, remember long ago, when we were growing up, right? When you go into school, I go to primary school, your parent or your granny used to tell you, if they hit you, hit them back. You understand? They hit you, hit them back. All right, that is what. Now, the other side I want to talk about, that bullying thing is a serious thing. Okay, you have the victim and you have the person who is bullying you. Now you have your child going to school, Trudy. You understand? Your daughter or your son come and tell you that person doing them that. You say, okay, go to the teacher, and so, okay? Next day the child coming again, the bully is still doing it. Go to the youth. As a parent and as a human being, I'm putting it straight. You wouldn't like anybody to be bullying your child because the first instinct you might have is, he or she not stopping, and you take the case for yourself. You might just go to the school and say, I'm going for that child, you understand? Forgetting he's a child, but remember, it's also your child, but forgetting he's a student too. You have that case. And you also have the situation where you bullying a child all the time, bullying. One day that child must just say, boy, I tired of that, and might bring a weapon to school, you understand? Bring that weapon, whether it's a knife, whether it's a pin, whether it's whatever it is, a scissor or anything, and prick that child. And sometimes the child pass out. That death, you have that side. Now, what I wanted to ask, is there anything in place to, so you bring both parents together and the victim and the bully together and talk to them or come to them? Because some point in time, something will happen. It's either the bully stop, you understand what I'm saying? By some means, it's either the bully stop, because as a parent, you're not going to take that. So that's the question I want to ask. And sometimes relationships break up, who are friends and so, because even though you're my friend and your child bullying my child, after a while, friendship comes see the friendship quasi. That type of story. So I want to ask that question. Because that bullying thing is a serious thing. It has plenty sides to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so the question is essentially, is there any sort of approach which includes both the perpetrator and the victim and their parents, in one sort of session? Is that an approach that's utilized?
Well, I can't really speak on the education aspect of it. I'm not sure how the schools will deal with it.
Okay.
The principal or the counselor will see fit how it should be handled. But I think what the caller was trying to ask, I think it leans towards mediation.
You're right, like it sounded
yes,
like that.
And that is a very important technique that can be used because we're dealing with adolescents. And I'd just like to say that, or to point out, the age of criminal responsibility in Dominica is 12 years old.
12?
Yes, 12. People don't know that.
Yes.
12. It's just because our magistrates and the court system don't want to send an adolescent to the state prison. They may seek other forms of disciplinary actions.
Yes.
So mediation can be used to prevent them from going to prison. So, like the person they mentioned, let's say inflicting harm on another person, that is a serious offense.
Of course.
That could kill the person.
Yes.
But what do you do? Do you send the person to prison? Do you charge them and send them to prison? Or you use other measures? So the court can mandate mandated counseling through the court.
Right.
There is the probation unit that will help to deal with that issue. And also mediation. How does the person atone for what happened or what they did? So you would have both parties, and you would obviously have a trained mediator. And it's a very good approach because the victim gets to express themselves to the perpetrator, and the perpetrator now has the opportunity to express their remorse for what they did and to
Right.
understand. So it's a very good approach.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's take another call. Our lines are really going. Caller, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I like interesting program you have.
Thank you.
I just want to say something. I had a son, he had just started preschool. He was just about to that he started school very early. And one he was to do preschool. I won't call it preschool, but he was going to preschool. And one day he came home for lunch. And he told me, Mommy, I have a little boy in school. Every day he eating me, every day he eating me. Today, I want a fork to go and prick his eye, like he's seeing, to prick me. When he told me that, I said, my God. So I went to the kitchen with him. I make sure I went to the kitchen with him. I see that he did his lunch. He did everything. He don't go by the place where I have the forks and the spoons. I asked him to wash his hand. I did take his hand when it was time to go back to school at 1:30. And I went with him. And I spoke to the teacher. And the teacher told me to wait when the little boy come in. So when the little boy came in, my son told her which of the child he was doing to that. He sent and called his mother, and we sat down as a parent and a teacher and children, and we spoke about it, and that was the last day that ever happened to my child.
Awesome.
I just want to just say that to some parents out there, you don't have to take the course for yourself. At least you can go to school with the child and talk to the teacher and get it solved.
Okay. All right. Thank you, caller. And so, the caller has a real life experience of
Yes.
the sort of mediation
Right,
approach that we were just discussing, and it worked.
Yes.
It did.
But I can presume in some situations it will be as easy as what happened, and that's only when both parents are mature enough or open enough to have a sit down discussion. Because if the parent of the child who is the bully would say, my child would never do that, and be very offensive and not really listen to what's going on or the type of situation, then nothing will be resolved in that type of setting,
And sometimes what you may find is that before you even get to the point where you have both parties present, that child and their parent may need some help individually by themselves before they can even maybe have that conversation with another parent. Because like the previous caller mentioned, there were a lot happening at home. So maybe there's some
Right.
stuff they need to deal with first. And people say, I don't want my business outside.
Right.
So maybe they need that themselves to deal with whatever issues going on before they even get to the point where they can have mediation with someone, with another party present.
I would just like to add also, based on the callers, what I've been observing is we are mentioning learned behavior indirectly. And one of the things that causes bullying is learned behavior. So it's what children see at home, online, with their friends in their peer groups. And sometimes I would even add those social media challenges. If you look at them, sometimes they can be bullying others. So these things are learned. So we have to be very, again, observant, and we have to be careful what we model to our children in the community, at schools and at home.
And sometimes the bullies may have supporters around them. And I think you also gave the example, or either one, where in a group setting, the one who was bullied would be cast aside and may not want to stand up for himself. So if you have a whole group around and no one else is standing up for you, and the bully has, his or her supporters, and no one stands up for the one who's been bullied, then it's almost like an intimidating setting.
It is.
It
is.
And one of the solutions that came up from the students at the anti-bullying forum, I'm reading it right here, is peer support and buddy systems. That was one of the suggestions where students who you may notice who have been bullied, you team them up with someone else, so they are not left out or there by themselves or so on. So it's not just to prevent the bullying, but and then it allows them to draw them into social settings, social interaction.
Yes.
Someone who might be more, some of us are always a people person, and that allows them to be a bit more comfortable in
Right.
social settings,
Yeah.
the body system,
Right.
especially
I
for
like
those who are much younger, not necessarily the
Right.
teenagers, but the primary school age.
Ones,
Yes,
Okay.
the body system would help a bit. And that's from students. That's just amazing. It was
Right.
one of the suggestions from the students from the Innovation Forum.
So let me ask, so what's the, okay, so now that the forum has passed, you have the suggestions, it's documented. What's the next step for you in that program?
Oh, we're not sitting around.
Okay.
No, truly, we're not sitting around at all. As a matter of fact, I did reach out to the students at the college because we were ready to support them. Just send us their little budget, what they need, and we can get going and get into their own was the anonymous reporting.
Right.
There are 3 other schools, primary schools, who are going to do the bully stoppers.
Okay.
So there we had a meeting this week. Lovely meeting. They're ready to go. So we're organizing for us to prototype or test those ideas.
Okay.
So that's the other thing when we're looking at innovation, we prototype. You don't want to invest a lot of money into something and then it
doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So you prototype it to see if it works or what works and what doesn't work, and then you make adjustments. Then you can roll it out. So no, we're not sitting, we're putting it into action. And you said something very, very important, that when the students give these suggestions, we are following through.
Yeah.
It's not on a shelf.
Yeah. Nice.
We're following through.
Okay, let's take one more call. We actually at the end of the program, but before we wrap up, we do have calls coming through. Let's just take one more call. Caller, good morning. Okay, so we lost that caller. That was supposed to be our last caller, and we lost you. We are very sad about that. It has been quite an interesting discussion. It's actually right now 11:31 here in the studios of Q95 FM, and we are in the wrap up mode. But before we wrap up, I do want to give everybody the opportunity to give closing remarks. I think one of the major things that we wanted to come out of this program is not just what the issue is, and we have covered it. It's bullying, what it is a big issue. The statistics show that it is a big issue here in Dominica and in other islands across the region. But what are the solutions and what are the resources available to people to address the issue? We've shared some throughout the show, but I just want to ask both our guests in their concluding remarks to remind our audience, some of the resources that are available as it relates to addressing the bullying issue that we are facing.
Okay, so from the home, I would just like to advocate that parents should be observant and listen to their children. You need to create safe spaces for them to express themselves openly and honestly. And then based on that, you can take it from there. I'd also like to advocate the schools so that they can be observant of their students, to ensure that the counselors at the school are well supported so that they can address certain issues regarding bullying. And also, I'd like to speak out to victims who are being bullied that you should report it. It's not your fault. And there are people who are willing and ready to support you in what you're going through. Okay, you should not be carrying this alone. And we're right here for you, waiting to help you.
Yeah. We're working with students and in the school. So to create an environment that allows for every child to reach their full potential, to create a safe environment, we have to all assist. We all have to play our part. At the school level, you report it. And it's not just because if it's happening to you, if you see it, don't just be a bystander. We have more bystanders than victims, Or we pretend that we don't see it. Even if it's your friend and you're in the crew and you notice it, you can report it anonymously. That's okay. He doesn't need to know. So report it. You report it to a teacher. The secondary schools are lucky to have counselors. At the primary school, people who come in as well, counselors, you report it there. And keep reporting it. Even if you do not get an outcome immediately, you keep reporting it. As Ms. McIntyre said, no, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You are not alone. And this is one chapter of your life. You have many more
Very
chapters
good.
to get to. So you speak to an adult, and then the onus now is on the schools and so on to put mechanisms in place to respond to that. If you have difficulty in maybe speaking to a counselor at school, because that was something that the students brought up, the social services has one right there. You know, where by ACS opposite, nice little white building, you pop in and you know, you inquire. Parents, seek help for your child or your children. We know you can't do it all alone, and there are services available in Dominica. Take advantage of the services, and it's free. It's free. So take advantage of the services, because it's not just the physical well-being of the child that's important. The mental health is important because it can manifest itself physically and throughout their lives.
Well said.
I think they said it all. But yes, I mean, bullying is not set in black and white. And, you know, as you both mentioned, it's a collective effort. So let's continue to work together.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today on the program. If you are listening and you tuned in late, well, you missed a very, very thorough discussion, very good discussion. As a matter of fact, I wish we had more time because I wanted to get into the adult bullying, which is, you know, which wasn't on the topic up for today, but which is an issue as well. Adults bullying each other. But I guess we will have to have another show for that. But so thank you so much, Giselle Mondesi Charles, for joining us, Mudoni McIntyre for joining us on the program. It was indeed a pleasure, and hopefully we can have follow-up discussions in the future. And to all our listeners, of course, as we started off the show by saying, if you're in the Roseau area and you want to revisit your King George V Street Jollies, that was your favorite, and you want something, you want your prescription, you want whatever it is, of course, the wholesale, the new Jollies is on King George V Street. What used to be the wholesale is now wholesale, resale, and pharmacy, 3-in-1. Make sure to drop by, say hi to your people on King George V Street. And if you want to go to Great George and say hi to Jacinta, you can do that as well. So we're signing out here from the program, Team Jollies. Of course, we will be back, if God wills, next week, Wednesday, with another program of Health Vibes. And until then, we wish you a great week, a healthy week. And we will link up again soon. Goodbye.
Take care.
Jolly's Pharmacy is bringing vibes to health with Health Vibes. Health Vibes. Each and every Wednesday from 10 to 11:30 a.m.